Hello everyone, Jeff Jobs here. In this video, I'm going to talk about workflow using the Cloud9 IDE. I'm going to start with a sandbox, write some code, use source control to back up my code, and also to use that source control to deploy my code into a different Salesforce org. So we'll use the classic sandbox to production deployment. To follow along, you'll want to have a free Bitbucket account. You'll want to have a Cloud9 Salesforce account, and then a sandbox workspace and a production workspace. So here we go. I'm going to go into the sandbox. All right. And I usually wait a few seconds to let everything sync and make sure I see this syncing wheel here. Now I'm going to click here, and you want to make sure that automatically synchronize is not checked. I do that because I enjoy working and getting the code the way I want it before I synchronize back up to Salesforce. I could make some changes that I don't like, and I don't want those changes to automatically pop up there. So I prefer to push this button myself when I am ready for the code to go on to Salesforce. So we're going to make some new files. We can use the keyboard shortcut Control and N. I'm going to make 4. And the reason why I'm going to make 4 is because I want a test class and a class, and I have to make the meta-xml files when I do it this way. And the meta-xml files are basically files that tell Salesforce what API version you're using for the code. It tells Salesforce if the code is active or not, and it informs the package XML of what should be synced back and forth between Salesforce and Cloud9. So we can begin here, and what we're going to do is just save these files so that way the proper syntax highlighting occurs. So I'm going to use Command and S. You can use Control S on a PC. And I'm going to call this deploy test. And I'm going to put the CLS extension on there for the Apex class. Make sure I put it in the classes folder, and I'll hit save. When I do that, you'll notice that Cloud9 automatically switches our syntax highlighting to Apex, which is exactly what it should be. Now here, I want this to be the meta-xml file, so I'm going to once again use Command S. I'm going to give it the same exact name. Then I'm going to do dash meta.xml and put that in the class folder as well. Okay, and notice that Cloud9 switches it up to the XML syntax highlighting, so that's very good. And then we'll just finish this off. I'm going to say that these are tests for deploy test. This will be CLS because it's going to be a test class. And then I'll go over here and do tests for deploy test.cls dash meta-xml. Put that in the classes folder as well. Okay, very good. Now, over here, as far as making an XML file, something that I've memorized, wouldn't be bad for you to memorize as well, but it's just the code that makes this work. So we go ahead and do this, XML. XML has to have a version, okay? It also has to have encoding. Right, and we have this question mark thing. And then we're going to use the Apex class tag here with XML namespace. And then we're going to put in this. And then it's soap.sforce.com 2006 April, and then it's metadata, right? Gives us the close tag automatically. Excellent. We'll do API version. And then the current API version is 35. and then we're going to do the status, and the status is active. Okay, so I'll go ahead and save that. I'm going to just save myself some time, and I'm going to copy and paste that over here. Or not. Interesting. Let me try that again. Copy. I'm going to use the shortcuts this time and paste. Huh. Well, interesting. So now we're going to actually write some code. I like to use the test-driven approach. So that is test class tests deploy test static test method void. We'll do a hello world test. Okay. And in this test method, we're going to do something pretty simple. We're going to make a string called hello world. And it's going to equal deploy test dot hello world hello world. All right, so now we have to test to see that string equals that. So yeah, this is not exactly an incredible achievement in code writing. But basically this test class is going to make a string equal to what we send over to this method. The method should return what we send over to it. And that's what this assert statement is saying right here. So that's what the test requirement is. Now we're going to go ahead and actually write the code that'll make that happen. So we'll do public with sharing class deploy test. All right, and then we'll do, I think I called it hello world, so public static string hello world, which accepts a string, right, which we'll just call hello. Okay, and then what we're going to do is return hello, right? So very simple, straightforward kind of a thing over there. All right, so now that I have the test written, I've got the class written, I've got the XML written, we want to go ahead and synchronize this up to the sandbox. So that way it's there. And usually that's enough. If you want to double check that it's there, one of the nice things that Cloud9 gives you is this panel, which takes you right into setup. And then you can go right in and type the word Apex, go into classes, and make sure that your classes are there. And there's deploy test, tests, deploy tests, and you can even go into these, take a look, and they should be identical to what you put in there. So that's a quick little check you can do if you're somewhat paranoid like I am. All right, so once you have the code written, you can click this test panel here as well. You can click on the test you want to run, and you can hit run. Now, I should say that this part of Cloud9 is experimental. I've had great success with it, but it's not a feature that is 100% right now. But as you can see, it did work, and I can see the inline code coverage so that this is covered. I can see that it's 100%. And if I click on this and click Open Code Coverage View, I can see that it's found my deploy test and it's given me the code coverage on it. So that's a very convenient, fast feature. I find that much quicker and much more useful than the Developer Console. Certainly, if you want to verify with the Developer Console, another great feature is you can go right to your Developer Console from here. And by the way, people who have asked questions about debugging, this is where you'll want to go to debug your code. Cloud9 doesn't have that feature yet. It's coming soon. But this is where you can go to debug, and you can use the debug tools and logging tools that are actually pretty great with the Dev Console and with Salesforce in general. Okay, cool. So this is really good. I've written my code, I have tested my code, and I have synchronized my code so it's now in the sandbox. My next step is to take this code, because I want to deploy this, and I'm going to use Git to do that. This is not only going to back up my code outside of Cloud9 and outside of Salesforce and put source control on it, which is always a best practice, but I'm then going to be able to use that source control to make my deployment into my production org. So I'm going to start by going to Bitbucket. I'm going to go to Create Repository, and I'm just going to call this Test Project. And I usually give it Java. You don't have to do this, but most of the code I write looks close enough to Java because of Apex, and that just helps with some of the syntax highlighting if you happen to look at it in your repo. All right, so now that this is created, we can take a look at basically how this works, which is when you use Git with this, you want to remote into your repository. And rather than tell you, I think I'll just show you. So let's go back and over here. One of the cool things about Cloud9 is you get a terminal. And the terminal takes you to the computer, which is what you're remoting into when you use Cloud9. So you don't have to use an external tool or try to finagle your way through this. You actually can jump right in. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is I'm going to initialize a Git repository on locally rather on this machine. So I'll do this. Now it says master. That's the master branch. If I go to the workspace folder and click here and click show hidden files, I can see that it's made this hidden Git folder. By the way, if you ever get to a point, and I am not embarrassed to say that I have, where you've just gotten this screwed up somehow, you can always just do this. You can delete your Git folder, and then you can make a new terminal window, and hey, it's a new day, right? So that's kind of a cool feature as well. Really easy to manipulate this and get this to be what you want. So I'm going to do this. That initializes a Git repository. Now I'm going to add a remote. So I'm going to type git remote add. I'm going to call it origin. And then the way you do this is you do HTTPS. Okay. You're going to put in your Bitbucket login. So if I was to log in to Bitbucket, I would do this. Then you're going to put in your put a slash and put in your username. And then you're going to put a slash in, and you're going to put in the name of the repo. So the one I just made was test project, and then just use the .git extension. All right, so now I have a remote, which is great. I can do git status, and it'll show me the things that are available. And if I open up my classes folder, I can see these are the things that I want to add. Okay, I'm going to type clear, and then I'm going to do a git add. And nice things about git add is that you can just keep typing files until you're done. So I'm going to do classes, so I have to go into that classes folder, and then I'll do deploy test.cls, and then instead of a comma, just use a space, classes, deploy test.cls dash meta-xml space classes tests deploy test CLS, and then lastly classes tests deploy test CLS meta-xml. Okay, very good. Now I'll do a git commit, put a message in, and we'll say that this is, added basic files. Obviously, if this is a real scenario, you'd put something in there. Okay, so there's your commit, and then you'll do a get push origin master. So I want you to sign in. Okay, and then there it is. Right? Now, how do I know that this is successful? Well, it tells me, but I can go into Bitbucket, and then I can go into my source. And if I did this right, I'll actually see the classes folder, and I'll see the meta files and the classes in here like so, which is fantastic. So now from my sandbox, I have this in the Salesforce sandbox. I've got 100% code coverage, and I've got this source controlled through Bitbucket, which in and of itself is pretty darn cool. But now I'm going to close out of this workspace, and I'm going to go into production. Okay. So now in production, you can see that I've got the hidden files being shown. There's no get yet. If I go into classes, I can see that there are different classes in here. I think this is something I've been using with Trailhead. But there's no deploy test, right? We can clearly see that. So the goal is going to be to get that code in here so that I can then synchronize it back into production. So I'm going to make sure that automatically synchronize is not checked because I don't want to make this deployment until I'm ready. All right. And now I'm going to go right into terminal and do essentially what I did before. So I'm going to initialize the Git repository. I'm going to add the remote. Oops. Origin, and then we do my username, and then the name of the project, which was test project, and then .git. Okay. And then I'm going to, I don't have to add anything, right? It's kind of the opposite. I want to bring stuff down. So now I can do a pull. Get pull origin master. And then it's going to ask me to log in. So I'll do that. Great. And just like that, it's pulled in deploy, test, and meta. It's pulled in tests, deploy, test, and meta. All right. So the last step is going to be to deploy this into production. And all I have to do that is to push the synchronize button. And sometimes I've noticed that you'll click it and it'll work for a little bit. You want to make sure you click it and it works for at least a few seconds, right? And now we want to go ahead and test that this is there. So we're going to go to force.com setup, which will take me to the production setup. Okay. And then I'm going to go to Apex classes. Okay, I'm going to go to D. And I can see that deploy test is there. I'm going to go to T. And I'll be able to see that test, deploy test is there, right? And as a last step, I can go to test in production, and I can test this again, crossing my fingers that this will work as expected. Seems to have. And I've got that coverage, so I can jump back over here. I can go over to my deploy test class, click on it, and I should have my 100% code coverage, yep, right over there. So in summary, I was able to start with a sandbox, create code from scratch in that sandbox space. Then I was able to put it in a sandbox, test it, use the terminal to have source control, and then use the terminal in production to pull down the code into the workspace, and then to use the synchronize tool here to deploy that code. So all in all, I think that's a really fantastic workflow, and it's a lot more complicated when you have to say it out loud. If you're just doing this, it's very, very fast, and you're getting your source control, you're getting all the things that you need, and it's a really easy, elegant solution, and best of all, it's all online using the fantastic tool that Cloud9 has provided. If you have any questions, you can find me on the community, Jeff Jobs, and happy coding.